Welcome back to the final section, or C block, of this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast news show. I'm Jimmy Young, filling in for Elena Pinto, who is on assignment in Vermont this weekend. However, she will be back next week. Last reminder, if you want to see our content that documents the fight to end cannabis prohibition from the past 4 years, you should download our app that is available for free at the App Store and on Google Play. All you have to do is scan that QR code that is on the screen right now. Okay, very simple. Just do it, and that'll take you right to the app. And of course, you can download it. It's free. And there is in-app content, all those shows. Okay, now a story that relates to the federal update we did at the top of the show. And this one has to do with Elon Musk's DOGE. That stands for Director of Government Efficiency. You might remember that many Republicans who masquerade as reformists use the delaying tactic of, we just have to do more research on the plan before we make any significant federal reform. Well, guess what? There have been already over 30,000 studies done on this plant over the last century. That's right, and a few of them were actually conducted by the U.S. federal government, and they all came back with a lot of the same kind of stuff. The plant is relatively benign. It can be abused, absolutely. You can be allergic to it, but for the most part, those results have all been published in over 5,000 medical magazines and periodicals. But now, as an example of how inefficient our government really is, Musk and his cost-cutting initiatives have pulled funding for a research study on cannabis that is halfway completed. So once again, it's one step forward, and we need more research, and 2 steps backward, and you can do research, just not with federal money anymore. It's just not a priority for anyone sitting in the 119th Congress, now totally controlled by the Republican Party. Now, back to these state reports, and let's check in with Marc Allen, the Illinois, aka the Chicago clone guy.
What's up, everybody? Chicago clone guy here, Marc Allen, reporting from just outside of Chicago, Illinois, in the clone camp. Thanks for tuning in to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. This is Bird. Lots to talk about, but I'm going to keep it simple and short for you. Illinois has another lawsuit coming their way. A group of social equity cannabis transport companies is suing the state and Pritzker, claiming that Pritzker and the Illinois Department of Agriculture have failed to deliver on promises. Long story short, when the state created their recreation and medical cannabis program, the cultivators had to hire companies to transport the cannabis to the dispensaries. That was the beginning case. After about a year or two into it, the state changed the rules and said that the cultivators can now transport their own product, pretty much leaving the social equity transport companies in the dust, out of cash and out of jobs. So they said, hey, state, you told us that we need to do this. We were going to be the transporters, and then you turned it on us. So they are now suing the state. So we'll see what happens with that. Good news. The state created the CRI, which is the Cannabis Research Institute, based out of actually the University of Illinois, which is pretty neat. What they are is they are established to be a trusted source of unbiased, factual, accurate information on crop management, health, medicinal effects, social equity impacts, agricultural practices. Simply put, the Cannabis Research Institute is put into place in Illinois to help people grow and to learn more about cannabis, to normalize it, which is pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to learning from them, because we all have a lot to learn. But that sums up the Cannabis News Report for Illinois. I'm Marc Allen, the Chicago clone guy, tuning out for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Next up, the Empire State of New York and the Garden State of New Jersey. Pam Chmeil is our New York reporter, and Jill Goldsberry is in New Jersey. Pam hopped that border and attended the Benzinga conference last week in New Jersey. And Jill, well, she's waving the flag for Women's History Month.
This is Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Pam Chmeil, reporting from New York. Although today I'll be sharing key insights from Benzinga's New Jersey Spotlight event that I attended last week. New Jersey is becoming the hottest cannabis market in the U.S., generating nearly $1 billion in sales last year, up 25% from the previous year. The market is growing rapidly since its launch in 2022, with 13 medical dispensaries to 200 adult use stores today, with independents leading the way. Panelists at the Benzinga event shared both optimism and caution for New Jersey's growing market. Seth Yakatan from Catan Associates warned of an impending price compression like other markets, where CPA Rachel Wright advised for lean operations to weather the impending market shifts. Investors are also tightening their expectations by demanding quick returns before committing funds. The investors panel advised entrepreneurs to demonstrate proof of concept and a track record of success before seeking investments, since investors are far more likely to fund businesses that can prove that they can execute. Dan Neville of Advanced Flower Capital explained that because of New Jersey's unlimited license state, as more dispensaries open, individual market share will shrink, making profitability harder to achieve. And speaking on the How Technology is Defining East Coast Cultivation panel, Jesse Horton, a respected cultivator from Oregon, expressed enthusiasm for AI's emerging role in cultivation operations and crop steering. And as the market matures and competition increases, the multi-state operators in New Jersey are shifting their strategy. Verano, for example, is expanding its wholesale reach instead of focusing on retail to reach more consumers and maximize their market presence, since they are only allowed to open a couple of stores. And meanwhile, independent retailers in New Jersey face an uphill battle in growing their market share, since MSOs had a 2-year head start, allowing them to build strong brand awareness and customer loyalty before independents even had a chance to enter the playing field. And despite having 82% of the market share, independents generate significantly less revenue than the MSOs, which also have the state's top-selling brands. While the mood was upbeat at Benzinga's New Jersey Spotlight event, New Jersey's cannabis market evolves and matures, independent retailers must differentiate themselves, maximize operational efficiency, and build strong customer loyalty to compete against the established MSO giants. That's this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Pam Chmeil, reporting from New York.
I'm Jill Goldsberry with the New Jersey Report, and it's Women's History Month, and there's a lot going on. So let me tell you what's been happening throughout the state. We have a lot of events with a lot of brand events, dispensary events. So there's a mix of a few, and I'll tell you all about them. Hashtoria in Newark, New Jersey. You know, that's the dispensary owned by Raekwon the chef of Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah, that one. Right on Newark Avenue, right on Broad Street in Newark, New Jersey. They hosted a Queen for the Day event, complete with facials, massages, healthy food, and the day highlighted females in the industry who you may know already, some of their brands. Precious Cannabis, who was on hand, as well as Direct Leaf, which is a delivery service, and Jane's Joint, a boutique focused on cannabis and education. So, and I believe that boutique is opening soon. We will keep you up to date on that. And they were all on hand for a conversation about women's health and cannabis. And the next event that happened also this happened in New Brunswick. 3 female dispensary owners Holistic Solutions, Voltaire, and Leaf House got together at the New Jersey Smokers Club to produce the Pretty Girls Smoke 2 event. So that happened as well. And that was more of a networking event and honoring the women in the industry and like celebrating them. So lots of things are happening. And lastly, moving on back to Jersey City, the ladies of Buttercake are producing a rooftop retreat event for women in the cannabis industry. And that is featuring yoga, of course, Buttercake treats, and lots of networking. So those are just a few of the things that are happening across the state. There will be plenty more, I'm sure, before the end of the month, and we will tell you all about it. I'm Jill Goldsberry with the New Jersey Report, and I will see you on the next report. Thanks for watching.
Also in New Jersey is our man who is high on Wall Street. His name is Doug Miller. Here's this week's report on the publicly traded cannabis stocks. This week, he focuses on Cresco Labs.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Cresco Labs drives record cash flow in 2024 according to financial results. They had revenue of $724 million with record operating cash flow of $132 million and free cash flow of $114 million. Their gross profit was $364 million with a net loss of $60 million, which includes a one-time non-cash charge of $66 million related to company's expected benefits from its updated 280E position. So we'll see what happens with that. As of December 31st, 2024, current assets were $294 million, including cash equivalents, and restricted cash of $141 million. The company had senior secured term loan debt net of discount and issuance costs of $352 million and a mortgage loan net of discount and issuance costs of $18 million. So let's see how this all affects the stock chart. It's trading around 74 cents and it's been pulling back with the rest of the market. So we have to wait for things to bottom out so they can start moving back up. It's been a little choppy, so make sure you trade smart and lock in those profits. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News, I'm Doug Miller.
Next up on the calendar, of course, is 420, the annual day to celebrate all things cannabis. And if some of you don't know the origin of that so-called holiday, 420, it all started back in 1971 when a bunch of seniors from San Rafael High School used to meet after school at 420 to catch an afternoon buzz. They were called the Waldos, and they would meet at the Louis Pasteur statue across from the school. Well, one of them happened to be a friend of the Grateful Dead rock band, a member of the Dead rock band, and he embraced their calling, and the rest, needless to say, is history. I should give some credit to law enforcement, however, in California, who used the 420 code to communicate there's public smoking of cannabis going on now. It's the busiest day for retail sales in the industry, and Joe Parsons has a list of activities that are happening in his state of Virginia.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection from Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 through WV, and reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Pro Cannabis Media would like to wish everyone a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day and hope that you're surrounded by plenty of green this year. With all the excitement of the recently passed bills on the way to the governor's desk, it's easy to forget that 420 is only a little more than a month away. So I thought I'd give a rundown on some upcoming 420 events to make this year's celebration planning a little easier. The Cannabis Cultivators of Virginia and Lakefront Winery will present Lazy Days 4 in Bracy, Virginia on Saturday, April the 19th. As the name implies, this is the fourth Lazy Day Craft and Music Festival. And every year, the event gathers more followers and grows with a relaxed but fun environment that any cannabis enthusiast would appreciate. The event starts at 2 p.m. and will run until 9 p.m. Tickets are starting at only $20 and can be bought online at eventbrite.com. Search for CCOV Lazy Days 4. Please be advised that this is a 21 and older event only. The National Cannabis Festival will also be returning to the RFK campus in D.C. on Friday, April the 19th and Saturday, April the 19th. The festival, now in its 9th year, will have 2 days of live music, exhibits, and of course, plenty of munchies for the whole 420 weekend. Stay tuned for band updates as I get them. For now, further information on this one can be found at nationalcannabisfestival.com. 420 falls on Easter this year, And fun fact, Easter last fell on 420 in 2014, 2003 before that. And did you know that after this one, it won't happen again until 2087? So if you think about it, this will be the last Easter 420 that many of us will see in our lifetime. So plan on making this 420 one to remember and always consume responsibly. Lastly, a special thanks to PCM founder and executive producer Jimmy Young for being my guest on this week's Coffee Talk. This week, we talked about the struggles of the reverse progress going on in the cannabis industry and where the industry might be headed in the future. So thanks again, Jimmy. You can always tune in to the Coffee Talk podcast by going to www.3wv.com and then clicking on the Coffee Talk banner. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Virginia Cannabis Connection from Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 3WV in Charlottesville. I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
Well, joining us now is the Grand Poobah of the New England Cannabis Convention. His name is Marc Shepard. There's probably a CEO involved there as well. But more importantly, he's the guy who started NECANN 11 years ago, probably 12 years ago now, just because of the pandemic year. Marc, something we both want to forget about. But here you are back and stronger than ever because you're all over the country now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we do shows in a lot of different markets. I think we're doing 7 this year, and we always obviously circle back to Boston. I'm from Massachusetts. That's where we began, and it's really a great way to kick off the convention season every year, and yeah, we're pretty excited for this year.
You know, everything goes back to sports with me. So to me, NECANN is like the Masters in golf. You know what I'm saying? Even though the Players' Championship is going on this weekend, to me, the golf season begins with the Masters. The convention season begins with NECANN. You know, there's a lot of doom and gloom in this industry right now. A lot of dispensaries are closing. It's very difficult. People are losing all their money and all this stuff. How have you found the atmosphere for sales and vendors, and are people just as enthusiastic about this as they were in the past?
They are, and you know, the reality is, and you know, this isn't to minimize the, you know, that it's difficult for individual people, but it's almost like, again, let's go back to sports at the beginning of, say, the NCAA tournament. There's 64 teams, right? Well, there's only going to be one winner, so for 63 teams, it's doom and gloom.
Right.
And that's maybe not the perfect analogy, but it's such a great opportunity that suppose there's space for 300 dispensaries in Massachusetts. Well, 1,000 people are going to try to have those 300. What does that mean? 700 people go out of business. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the industry. It means more people want in than the industry can keep afloat.
What's some of the biggest challenges do you see right now, besides what's going on with our federal government, before we turn it into a political discussion? What are some of the biggest challenges? Is it still access to capital? Is capital easing up a little bit as far as access goes?
I mean, you know, obviously I'm an event guy, so it always feels strange to be talking about those things as if I'm an expert or they're happening to me. But just, you know, anecdotally, as I talk to people, I think it's just the competitive crush. Like, honestly, if you're looking for capital now for a plant touching business in New England, you're getting in that race pretty late. And I can't imagine I don't know why you would feel it would be easy to raise capital, you know, 9 years after stores started opening and there's hundreds of competitors. So I just think it's really the reality of, okay, I had my business plan, but maybe I didn't count on pricing wars as, you know, you're fighting for your space.
Right, absolutely. And I think we're spoiled in Massachusetts too. That being said, we have a pretty vibrant adult use market and a medical market that is, let's say, adapting to the new reality. Your reality this year includes a social equity row. Is that what I read about? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, we've always, since day one, we've always made 10% of our floor space available. Way back, it was mostly nonprofits and advocacy groups because there were no social equity licensees, but that slowly changed. We've never really named it or done anything formal. We've really just kind of behind the scenes donated the booths. When people call up and say, "Do you have any discounts for social equities?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can have a booth." And so we've always done that. But I ran into Anthony from 40 Tons at MJ Biz, and he kind of has a nice setup. So I was like, hey, we have our local people that we do. We have space for more. So it was great to connect with somebody who's really doing things and making a difference with money going towards helping people. And he has his stack of social equity licensees, so they call it Justice Row, I think. And so so that'll be nice. There'll be some information. The 40 Tons booth has a lot of information and ways that you can help and get involved. So just maybe shining the light a little brighter.
That story of 40 Tons is remarkable. I had a great interview with Anthony a couple of weeks ago. I look forward to seeing him and his wife and his best buddy now all involved in the industry, heavily involved and flourishing, like you mentioned. Those are the stories, Mark, that I like to tell, because it isn't all doom and gloom. There are plenty of people out there who are figuring out how to survive and kind of navigate through the challenges of regulations and no regular tax deductions. And they're still passionate about the cause. The cause keeps a lot of people going, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I think so. And a lot of people you see through all other industries, they're in the industry because they're passionate about what it is. Whether, most restaurateurs, chefs, they're very passionate about food, and that's what drives them, even though the restaurant industry is one of the most difficult in the world. And that's what you're seeing, the people that are like, no, I'm past thinking that I didn't do this because, I'm gonna become an instant millionaire, this and that. They're like, this is hard work, but it's something I'm passionate about.
Exactly. It makes you look forward to going to work every day. That's what I look at anyway. Mark, what's a can't miss thing that you want to have? Make sure if you go to NECANN, you want to check out not just the 40 Tons booth. There's quite a few other vendors. In fact, what is the box score of the vendors? What do you got there for numbers this year?
We're going to finish just under 300, which is about as big as I feel this event will ever be, when you're talking about the Northeast and whatnot. So we're excited about that. And, it's hard to pick the one thing. We have two or three things that are first time. For the first time ever, we hired a separate program manager to put together an incredible programming track both days on psychedelics. Jack Gorsland put that together. If you're into psychedelics at all or know anything about it, check out that programming. It's really incredible, the level of experts and panels that Jack put together. So that's all day, both days. We have the ladies from Blunt Brunch. We're flying them in and having them host the Women's Lounge for the entire convention, both days. They've got 2 days worth of programming and networking going on in the Women's Lounge. That's a first time for us. And then on the NECANN Cup stage, which is Saturday, and we had over 500 entries into the NECANN Cup this year, so that's huge. But we're going to use that stage on Friday. We gave that to the Good Life Gang and Weird Brains people who do some incredibly just unique and fascinating programming of their own. So that stage will be in the exhibit hall in the lounge area, and they're going to have sessions there all day on Friday, and that's new as well.
How is one person going to cover all this? That's what I'm kind of challenged with this weekend.
Yeah. You got to get that 2-day pass and get there early.
And it's March 20th and 21st at the Heinz Auditorium in Boston, Massachusetts. Marc Shepard is the head of it all, kind of the founder and the guy who makes it all work. And I appreciate everything that you've done. And you know how special NECANN is in the growth of pro-cannabis media and myself in this industry. I'm now 7 years in.
Wow.
We survived.
Crazy.
I know.
Crazy.
Well, that will do it for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Elena Pinto will be back next week. I'll be at NECANN in Boston. So if you are going to attend and you're interested in getting your company on our show special, we release that the following week of NECANN. Just contact me. My email address, it's jimmy@procannabismedia.com. Until then, remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Consume it responsibly. For now, I'm PCM TV founder Jimmy Young. Have a great week.